We've been talking about transgender bathroom laws and rules and bills for a while, and a man undressed in the women's locker room at a local pool in Seattle, seemingly to test a new rule that allows transgender people to use the bathroom that corresponds to their gender identity, according to King 5 News. An unidentified man wearing board shorts walked into the women's bathroom of Evans Pool, which is right in the middle of Seattle. There were women inside the locker room, and they said at first they tried to kick the guy out, but the guy refused and said, "The law has changed and I have the right to be here." The man was, of course, referring to this local rule, which says public restrooms must allow transgender people to use the bathroom assigned to their gender identity. And hours before the man pulled this stunt, protesters on both sides of the gender identity bathroom issue had gathered on the steps of the Olympia State Capitol. Supporters of the law were saying predators can still be prosecuted if they take advantage of the rule. So the idea that this opens the door to all sorts of wackos and perverts is absolutely wrong. Opponents said, sexual assault is really the reason why this is dangerous for women, and we should not allow individuals who are biologically male in the women's room. It's unclear whether this particular guy was part of this protest or whether he was just testing its limits for his own personal education. I don't know. He went back into the restroom for a second time later in the evening when there were young girls changing for swim practice. And I think that this is just so stupid. And as Mary Ann Sato said, who uses the locker room several times per week, either identify as transgender or don't. And if you don't, you're taking advantage of a loophole, saying, hey, I'm a man who identifies as a man, and I'm just going to walk around the women's locker room naked. Even in a men's locker room with only biologically born men allowed, you can still have someone kicked out because they're waving their penis around or whatever it is that they're doing, right? I mean, if anything, this guy proves that transgender bathroom policy aside, you can be clearly identified as acting as a predator or bizarre weirdo, no matter what genitals you or anyone else in the room has. To me, this is proof that the rules are not the problem. The rules are random, isolated people like this.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not like there's some force field in front of the door to a women's or men's bathroom that, unless certain legislation is passed, prevents the opposite sex from going through. I'm pretty sure any predator can walk into either bathroom anytime and assault anyone they want. And so let's keep that in mind as well.
I'm not sure what outcome would be like an I told you so moment from a so-called protest like this. I mean, all this proves is that a non-transgender guy decided to get naked in the women's locker room. He was clearly identified as someone whose behavior was improper. It wasn't that he had the right or wrong genitals or whatever. His behavior was completely improper, and he shouldn't have been there. And it has nothing to do with the transgender bathroom bill. And I don't know that people will see that. I mean, I think some people see this and they're like, we told you so. It's like, you told us what? What exactly has been proven by this?
I guess it's just bad reporting, maybe?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Wild water stories. We've talked to you about flammable water before. We've talked to you about water that smells like licorice and shouldn't even be allowed to touch your skin. We've talked about Flint, Michigan, where the water is filled with lead and has created national attention. I've told you about Pennsylvania's drinking water, where fracking chemicals have been found. I have another story of total chaos in Texas, and it involves oily black liquid. I guess some would call it oily water, which is what's coming out of residential faucets in the Texas town of Crystal City. And nobody is sure about who to notify, because 12 days ago, the FBI arrested all but one of the top elected officials in Crystal City for their involvement in an alleged illegal gambling ring and an immigrant smuggling ring. I mean, you can't write this stuff. It's completely insane what's happening there. The oil water has forced local schools to close early late last week. And the statement now that we're hearing from city staffers is there's not really anyone in charge to oversee and make people aware of the condition of the water. So I wasn't going to wait for anyone to call me from City Hall. I know that leadership is not present at the time. This is the superintendent of schools in Crystal City. Crystal City's Facebook page, which is run by some staffer, nobody knows who it is, informed residents that they should be boiling water if necessary. Lewis, if you have a black sludge coming out of your faucet, I don't know that just boiling it is going to solve the problem.
Boiling actually might make things worse, because then you've probably got some really nasty fumes and gases around wherever you're boiling this water.
And according to the city staff that hasn't been arrested, the water's coloring is a result of a recently flushed water tank that hasn't been cleaned in 20 or 30 years. City staffers opened some fire hydrants hoping that they will flush this oily black water out of the system. According to the area's district attorney, Richard Durbin, the arrested officials have not resigned, and for the time being, they are the elected officials and representatives of the city, but none of them have said anything about the water problem. And the city's mayor, Ricardo Lopez, who was arrested again last week for assault, says he is not going to step in another city council meeting. I mean, what can you even say about this? We've been talking for years about the role that water is going to play in the economy. It's going to play a cultural role, an environmental role. It could influence war in the coming decades. And some things I would look at that we've done. Number one, check out our interview with water economist David Zetland. Check out our stories on water privatization, including 2 from May of 2015 about Nestle buying Oregon public water and about Walmart selling bottled water from drought-ridden California. And then go back even further to April, where we did a story about 40 states that are preparing or expecting water shortages. I mean, this is a really important issue to be up to speed on, and I still don't believe, Lewis, that most people have any sense of the impact that this water thing is going to have in the United States.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess what happened here, after the arrests happened, people who worked for the city probably said, let's quickly do those things we've been putting off for 10 or 20 or 30 years.
Right, yeah.
And this is the result. Yeah, and everything we've been seeing with water over the past 5 years, all of these disasters, really makes you appreciate when you do have clean water.
Yeah, there's been no incredible water victories in the United States of successful sort of intervention to take care of what is increasingly a looming problem for this country. Just crazy. If you have thoughts on this, I'm on Twitter at @Pakman, and Lewis is on Twitter at @LewisMotamedi. Send us your thoughts. Let's talk about the Ted Cruz birther situation. It is going to court, okay? The backstory is that you remember the Obama birthers. We've done an investigation into them. They say President Obama is not eligible to be president because we believe he either wasn't born in the U.S. or was born to non-citizen parents or whatever. Total nonsense. Then some Obama birthers, combined with a new birther contingent, says Ted Cruz is not eligible to be president. Ted Cruz was born in Canada. Of course, if you're an American citizen by birth, because his mom was an American citizen at the time, he may be eligible. But then others arguing, her name, Ted Cruz's mom's name, appeared on voter rolls in Canada, and that would mean she was a Canadian citizen, not an American citizen. And the counter to that has been, well, hold on. She was on a preliminary voter roll. That doesn't mean she was actually correctly able to vote as a Canadian citizen. Ted Cruz insisting she was not a Canadian citizen. Well, there is now a lawsuit, the jurisdiction of which is going to be heard in court. So there's some confusion about this, and I want to explain it. There was a circuit court of Cook County decision to hear a lawsuit on Senator Ted Cruz's eligibility for president. Lawrence Joyce is a lawyer and a pharmacist, and he filed a complaint in January with the Illinois State Board of Elections saying, listen, Ted Cruz is not eligible. Under the U.S. Constitution, he is not a natural-born citizen. We've talked about this term natural-born citizen before. It is referenced in the Constitution, but it is not defined, and it has never been tested by a court. Lawrence Joyce is an attorney who said he supports Dr. Ben Carson, by the way. He says his lawsuit has nothing to do with the Trump campaign. A judge has now said, because the Elections Commission initially responded, we are not going to deal with this. He's a natural-born citizen. The lawsuit was filed. It went to this Cook County court. The judge in that court has said that she would decide not if Ted Cruz is eligible or not to be president, but whether she has the jurisdiction to hear the case in which she is being asked to decide whether Ted Cruz is eligible to be president. So people have been emailing me saying, David, a judge in a week or two is going to tell us, is Ted Cruz eligible to be president? No, that's not where we are. The judge is going to decide whether she even has jurisdiction to look into this. And those are two very, very different things.
And I think it's fair to say, at least from what we understand, that even if she does have the jurisdiction, even if she takes a look at his eligibility, I can't find a reason why he would be ineligible.
I don't think that, and there are some saying if you were born in another country other than on a military base, like John McCain, you were not eligible. And they believed that that would even apply to people born if they're the kids of someone, an American citizen doing missionary work. I mean, and this pulls in questions about Mitt Romney. There's a lot of questions around this. My general sense is that the court, if they decide they have jurisdiction, will say Ted Cruz is eligible, and then it would be a matter of appealing that up to the next level. I don't think we're going to get a decision, even if this court says, yeah, we have jurisdiction, that says Ted Cruz can't run. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, and like you said, if it did, just imagine the appeal process and how long this would go on. He could be president before they even determine if he is eligible or not.
Although, if this court were to say they have jurisdiction and were to say we don't think that Ted Cruz is eligible, and that would obviously be appealed, that would throw a monkey wrench into this Republican primary. And it could actually help Donald Trump if people say,
oh, yeah.
If you look at evangelical voters who mostly are voting for Trump and Cruz, and they say, okay, well, our main choice was Cruz. I didn't really consider myself a guy who, or gal, who would vote for Donald Trump, but he does, for whatever reason, seem to be appealing to some evangelicals. Maybe it helps Trump. So I actually don't know that this is a good thing overall for the prospects of a Democrat winning the White House in November of 2016, but it will be interesting to follow.
Yeah, I mean, certainly any of these headlines are bad for Cruz, and the ammunition for Donald Trump is just incredible.
Talk to us about this on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Last week, I told you about this super awkward moment on MSNBC when Donald Trump thanked the hosts of Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski and former Republican Congressman Joe Scarborough, for their support. And they went into a panic, looking at each other and talking over each other, just frantically trying to distance themselves from that comment. And now there's leaked audio from Harry Shearer, the comedian and voice actor Harry Shearer of Simpsons fame, which it's not clear exactly how he got his hands on it. And it's off-air conversation between Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and Donald Trump. And the claim is, listen to how buddy-buddy they are. Let's take a listen to some of this audio here.
What do you have after this?
I make a speech, get on a plane, make a speech. I'm working.
Well, I tell you what, the Bloomberg poll, all the polls out today look great in South Carolina. All of them.
Yeah.
They look good. Well, let's see. But I'm being hit. They're spending $75 million on negative ads on me over the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Are they catching on at all?
No.
What do you think? Are they catching on?
No.
They're vicious. They're spending a tremendous amount on negative ads on me.
No. You know what I thought was the kind of wow moment was the guy you brought up on stage.
Yeah, that was good.
We played it several times this morning.
We played it up against Obama.
The both guys.
Both guys.
Oh, it is. We played Obama first.
The young guy
and then we
was the champ.
played the guys.
I saw it. I watched your show this morning. You have me almost as a legendary figure. I like that.
No, I tell you, this morning, what we basically said today was we were completely wrong about the
Totally.
debate. Yeah.
I thought
I did really well in the debate show, I have to tell you.
I didn't. Yes, Alex?
3 viewer questions.
You did not, right?
Oh my God, I was like, he's melting.
Yeah. I have to say, they go on to talk about possible questions that they're going to ask Trump, and Trump hears the questions that are coming and all this stuff. Whatever this means about the cozy relationship that seems to exist between mostly Donald Trump and Joe Scarborough, but sort of by association, Mika Brzezinski as well, this actually, I hate to admit it, Lewis, it improves my opinion of Trump. Because this is Trump, right? This is the exact same Trump talking about how he likes being portrayed as this legendary figure on their show, and talking about polls and talking about elections and all this stuff. It's the exact same Trump that you see on the campaign stages, right? The rally stages. And in some way, it just tells me Trump isn't really putting on a show during his rallies. Now, you might hate the person that Trump is during his rallies, and it's the same person that he seems to be off-air with Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, but there is no on-air and off-air Trump, seemingly. I mean, believe me, I'm not a supporter of Trump. I'm not anywhere closer to being a supporter of Trump after hearing this, but there's something kind of nice about the fact that this is Trump. This is the dude.
I agree. Yeah, I think he still might exaggerate things a bit when he's in campaign mode.
And his political positions that his campaign is based around, I don't believe for a second are Trump's actual positions. There's no reason to think Trump is all of a sudden, because of religion, super anti-choice. I mean, we've talked about that before. But with regard to his sort of demeanor and whatnot, this is the guy, right? I mean, this is who you're getting. I think he would be a disastrous president, and I don't think he will be president. But there was something about this clip that aside from the obvious critique of this cozy relationship that exists, I was like, it's Trump.
Seems kind of down to earth.
What can I say about the guy?
Yeah. I mean, and I wouldn't dig too much into the whole buddy thing. This is pretty normal chit chat for what's going on when the cameras aren't rolling.
Yeah, I mean, when we've had people on and there's sort of time before, I mean, if somebody just listened to a couple minutes of it, I don't think there's anyone we've ever interviewed where it would sound like we really don't like them or are at odds with them. And I don't think it would necessarily be evidence of any particularly cozy or adversarial relationship or whatever. I mean, generally just people are nice to each other off air, and that's sort of it.
Yeah, that's it. So it's really not interesting in that way, but it is interesting to hear Trump just sounding like himself, like a normal dude. And you know what? I wouldn't mind getting a beer with Trump, right? I mean, it probably wouldn't be that bad.
It would be, I mean, if it's anything like when he ordered his steak well done or stacked 2 pieces of pizza on top of each other and ate them with a fork and knife, I don't know how the guy would drink a beer, but it would be compelling.
Well, don't get me wrong. If he orders a Yingling, I'm out of there.
Lewis is going to be called an elitist for that. Every time he criticizes anything like that, the emails pour in.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Just let me say, I got sick off Yingling once.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
you love
why
it. Yeah.
It's okay. Yingling.
Very good. We haven't talked about Alex Jones for a while, conspiracy theorist and InfoWars host Alex Jones. A Trump fan called into the Alex Jones program, and Alex Jones is convinced that Donald Trump is going to be killed because I guess the Republican establishment or the so-called globalists, I love it. I just love these fully committed conspiracy theorists. The globalists, which is a popular conspiracy term, don't want Trump elected. And Alex Jones had the following to say about it.
You're seeing, but the silent majority is speaking right now, and Donald Trump is the key. I'm so impressed with what he's done, and you know, the gravitas. You speak about it all the time, Alex. I can't tell you how energetic I am and how happy I am.
Brother, I feel it too. I'm so alive. It's just it's over the top, but it's also alive because I realize the enemy's going to strike back.
Yeah,
they're going to pull a lot of rabbits out of hats, and I got to tell you, I think they're going to try to kill him. In fact, my gut says they're going to kill Donald Trump. But they have and that may be the plan to cause a revolution because we're winning informationally. They want to start a physical revolution. I want to just say to the feds and everybody else, come on. I mean, look, the globalists are pure evil. Do not go along with whatever plans they've got. Good people in the military and the police and even the federal government, blow the whistle when you see them getting ready to pull a false flag.
If Alex Jones keeps promoting this stuff, somebody might actually get the idea to go out and kill Donald Trump.
If the globalists are running the show, then that means the globalists have decided that Trump can accomplish this, right?
It's bizarre because if the globalists are so in control, wouldn't they have avoided a situation where they so obviously need to murder a billionaire to prevent him from being president?
Wouldn't Alex Jones have mysteriously died in a car or plane crash decades ago if these people were in control?
One of the great skills of Alex Jones is to, in a completely serious and seemingly genuine way, ask questions of people with no special knowledge whatsoever about those areas, and then agree with their baseless and outrageous answers as if they're sort of experts, right? This guy calls in, he's interviewing this dude, and he thinks the caller is just absolutely spot on, that the globalists are not going to allow Donald Trump to be president here. I maintain that this is a character that Alex Jones plays. I've told this story before, but it's been a while, so I'll tell it again since we have a lot of new viewers who may not have heard this. I was at a talk radio conference in New York City years ago, and I was hanging out. Alex Jones gave some kind of keynote address. It was crazy. I mean, it was totally harebrained. And afterwards, I was standing around just in a group of 4 people. It was me, Alex Jones, and the 2 guys, Ian and Mark, who at the time were the hosts of a New Hampshire sort of libertarian show called Free Talk Live. And Alex Jones came over and in a demeanor that is unlike anything you ever see him take on air, said, "What'd you guys think? I thought about really trying to freak them out, but I thought maybe it's not good for this audience," sort of implying that when he does his conspiracy stuff, it is an act. And I maintain a lot of this is an act.
I think so, and he's great at it. He really is. Some of the stuff he reports on is true. Some of it's accurate. Some of the Monsanto stuff, I guess a broken clock is right twice a day,
sure.
Right? But he is just such an outrageous character that I also find it hard to believe.
It's hard to really take it seriously, but the scary thing is a lot of people do, and if he insists with the someone's going to kill Trump thing, I worry somebody will actually try to do it. Couple quick stories for you before we get to voicemail. You might remember that recently Republican frontrunner Donald Trump said he could shoot somebody in cold blood on Fifth Avenue and he would still retain his lead with Republican voters. And his exact quote was, "They say I have the most loyal people where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible." He went back at this again yesterday. He was at a pre-Nevada caucus rally in Nevada yesterday, and he again repeated he could just start murdering people in cold blood without consequence, at least not a polling consequence. I guess he might get arrested for it, but presumably he thinks he would keep his support. Let's take a look.
Even the really dishonest press, even I was going to say a word, I won't say it, okay?
Yeah.
Even the really dishonest press says Trump's people are the most incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a rating, 68% would not leave under any circumstances. I think that means murder. I think it means anything, okay? And the rest, I think I got up to 92, which was like, will probably never leave. You know, like these incredible. Other guys are at 10%. I mean, they'll leave if you sneeze, they'll leave. They don't like the way you sneeze. My people, I love you people. Look at you. I love you. I love you.
He says this like it's something to brag about or be proud about. This just proves how foolish his followers are, right? I mean, to begin with, they're following a guy whose political platform is an act. Admittedly, it's an act. It isn't even conservative. He agrees with Bernie Sanders on more than you can imagine. Health insurance, in many ways, interventionist foreign policy, even on some issues of taxation and tax brackets and raising the tax brackets on hedge fund managers, et cetera. So they've already stated that they're following someone whose views, his stated views, never mind his actual personal views, which we believe are sort of the reality, are completely inconsistent with their values. So you have, to some extent, already clueless people supporting Trump in the first place. And then, even if the guy killed people, as he has now stated at least twice that I'm aware of, they would still support him. These may be some of the lowest information voters around. If I were Trump, I'd be trying to keep quiet that you could commit crimes against innocent people and your voters would still support you. I wouldn't want anybody to know that. I would want people to think that your followers are following you because your platform is so terrific.
Well, I applaud Trump supporters for standing by their convictions.
Yeah.
And for having such dedication. You don't like fickle voters, right?
No.
Well, Donald Trump voters apparently are not fickle, and that's, I think, maybe a good thing.
Criticizing murder, Lewis, is part of that political correctness, right? I mean, we need to stop criticizing murder because that's just politically correct talk. Maybe that's the view of the right on murder.
Depends if stand your ground is being invoked, right?
The Washington Post's Juliet Alperin and Mike DeBonis report that President Obama is vetting Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval. Now, Brian Sandoval is a moderate Republican. This would be to replace Antonin Scalia, the right-wing Supreme Court justice who passed away very, very recently. And there's a couple of interesting ways to think about this. On the one hand, we have Republicans, Lewis, who have said, we are not going to deal with a Supreme Court nomination during an election year. Doesn't matter who President Obama nominates. We're not even going to meet with them. We are not going to have confirmation hearings. Nothing is happening until voters select the next president, only then. Now, it's ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. But if Republicans see moderate Republican Brian Sandoval nominated to the Supreme Court, they might say, hey, you know what? This is, it's to the left of Antonin Scalia, but it's not that far left. Maybe we should play ball and actually consider a nomination, a confirmation hearing for Brian Sandoval. Now, here are a couple of different issues that may come up. Brian Sandoval is pro-choice. He is in favor of abortion being legal. That being said, he's against late-term abortion, and he's against federal funding for abortion, which, by the way, is already not allowed. So whether that matters, I don't really know. So on the one hand, Lewis, we're talking about a moderate Republican, certainly someone to the left of Antonin Scalia, but to the right of Elena Kagan and other more liberal justices. So this could be good if President Obama is able to get someone on the court. At the same time, the abortion question is often a litmus test in these Supreme Court confirmation hearings. If the opportunity to overturn Roe v. Wade came up, what would you do? And nominees usually don't answer, right? They say, listen, I shouldn't prejudge anything because any case that came before the court, I would go into with an open mind. But we know abortion is a litmus test for Republicans. He is a Republican, but he is pro-choice. I don't know what would happen.
Yeah, I think this was a smart move. I don't know a whole lot about Sandoval, but I think that I don't think this is trickery by Obama. I think that if he can have Sandoval appointed, that will happen. And it just puts the congressman GOP congressman in a funny situation.
There's another. So Lewis talks about trickery. The other hypothesis is Republicans have said they're not going to consider anybody. If they get word that President Obama might nominate Brian Sandoval and they say, hey, that's someone we actually would consider, President Obama could then come back and say, oh, we may have been vetting him, but that's not the nominee. This other person's the nominee, but you already said you would have considered confirming Sandoval, which makes it very clear that your entire we just don't do confirmations in election years thing is just a political BS move. And it would really expose Republicans. I think most Republicans are smart enough to see this possibility, and they're going to basically stay mute on this until we hear more.
Yeah, I think at this point they have to. They're going to have to stick to their guns, if you will, and
we know they do.
As we know they do, and they're going to have to refuse this guy as well. So I don't know what will happen.
Now, let me throw something else out, though, Lewis. There may be a sort of victory for President Obama if he's able to get anyone confirmed merely because of the insanity of what Republicans have said.
Right.
But putting Brian Sandoval on the court is realistically still going to leave you with a 5-4 conservative majority. So you have to consider, is it really a victory to put someone who's conservative but slightly less conservative than Antonin Scalia up there merely because you want to say, I put someone in there? If it's not going to change the balance of the court, we're talking about 9 votes here. That's something to consider as well. Would it really be a victory politically?
If Obama thinks that this is someone who will make rulings based on actual constitutional arguments and facts and reality instead of conservative nonsense or religious nonsense
and ideology,
then that's fine. I'm assuming that Obama thinks that that's who this person is.
Quick reminder, Democrats confirmed Ronald Reagan's Supreme Court nominee during the Iran-Contra scandal. If there was ever an argument to be made that because of the chaos happening in the White House at the time, there should be a delay on confirming a Supreme Court justice, that would have been it, and Democrats still confirmed him. So let's step away from that nonsense.